Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your hungry hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and this is the show where we review all the anime series from the previous season we did and didn't watch start to finish. Today we dig our teeth into the world of warring gourmet chefs with the delicious shonen title Food Wars and get drunk on the old-school gangster revenge drama that is 91 Days. But first, since we only got 2 reviews on the menu, how about some news as an aperitif?
Alright, so first thing we're going to talk about today, I think it's probably the one of the biggest stories from the past couple weeks, but Miyazaki's out of retirement again.
What a surprise!
What is this, the second or third time?
Miyazaki can, brackets not, retire.
Yeah. One of the producers at Studio Ghibli, Toshio Suzuki, even commented that Miyazaki will probably draw storyboards until he dies.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of grim, but it's probably true. Like he will probably, I don't know, collapse over a drawing board or something. I guess there are worse deaths though. So whatever.
I mean, you know, he just wants to save anime, man.
Yes, but anime was a mistake, so I don't know. Will he succeed?
Maybe.
So what's this? Are there any information about his new project?
About all we know is that the film is could be done by 2019 before the Olympics in Tokyo. Apparently this film has not actually officially gotten a green light yet, but Miyazaki started to work on the animation anyway.
As if that won't happen. It's like no. We're gonna deny our most successful animated movie maker his new movie. That's never gonna happen. So yeah. But we'll see if it actually happens until 19. I don't know how Studio Ghibli has been. What their track record is in terms of keeping their deadlines. So we'll see. Interested. I want to know what it's actually going to be about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's also been working on a CG short called Borrow the Caterpillar for the Ghibli Museum. So there's also that on the docket as well.
Yeah, if I ever get to Japan, I definitely have to remember to check that out. Not just a short movie, but the Ghibli museum in general. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Never been there, but I want to see it. And I'm looking forward to the movie, naturally.
Hopefully we'll know within the next year or two more details about it.
Mm-hmm.
For now, it's a mystery to us all.
Yeah, I mean, if you consider certain underlying... If you consider the subtext of The Wind Rises, the movie felt a bit like, okay, this is my exclamation mark to my work and everything... but apparently not. Like this was, apparently this wasn't the last thing he wanted to do and to say. So I'm looking forward to what he has, what more he has in store. If he has anything more interesting to say, and like I said, maybe just in terms of the actual characters and the actual story, not just the subtext in the movie. I hope it'll be a bit more interesting this time. And please get another voice actor. Even if you're friends with Ano, it just didn't work out for me, not at all. He felt totally miscast and misplaced in that movie. That really really weird choice there. I don't know. Weird experiment. I mean, interesting, but yeah, in my opinion, didn't work out at all.
The other stuff we have on the docket are kind of more curiosities than anything else. Like, apparently Gainax is teasing another Panty Stocking.
Okay. Yeah, that's weird. That didn't seem to me like a series that would necessarily, come to mind when it goes to we must have a sequel to this series.
Yeah, I like I was saying earlier, I never finished the series, the original myself, so maybe I don't know how it ended, but maybe it was very sequel baity, and I just don't know. Didn't seem like it led to that from what I heard, but whatever.
I didn't watch the series at all, but to me it sounded like more of a, I don't know, a one-shot comedy thing than anything else. And but it was a polarizing show, if I remember correctly. Like, a lot of people liked it, a lot of people hated it. So I don't know. I guess the lovers are gonna get a bit more to rave about.
It was a very bizarre show. I'd actually say the humor was probably on the weirdness level that something like Ren and Stimpy was. So,
who was it that was made by?
Imaishi. He directed it.
Yeah, exactly. It was by Imaishi. So yeah, that's one of his works I didn't even give a chance. So I don't know. I would have assumed that the humor would be something akin to the stuff we saw in Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill. But apparently it was more off kilter in this one or something.
Yeah, it really kind of was.
Okay.
People liked it, so.
All right. And with that, I guess that's it for the few news tidbits we had today. And now we're gonna head into our first review. The main protagonist of Food Wars, or Shokugeki no Soma, which is the Japanese title of the show, is Soma Yukihira. And he runs a small family restaurant together with his father, which is known for its simple but delicious Japanese cuisine. Soma wants nothing more than to follow in his father's footsteps and take over the restaurant. He's really into cooking, has constant competitions with his father who can, prepare the better meal. Like, they square off on a regular basis. And so far, Soma is always lost. So, he's very motivated to one day surpass his father and take over the restaurant and everything. But one day, after a particular incident, Soma's dad decides it's time for his son to see a bit more of the world. So he sends him off to the Engetsu Tea House Culinary Academy. That's a mouthful. Which is an elite cooking school that serves as the training grounds for some of the best chefs in the whole world. And one of the most unique things about the school are the so-called shokugekis, which shokugeki is like a made-up word consisting of the kanji for food and spear, I believe. And so make of that what you will. So in these shokugekis, the participants basically fight in a cooking duel to see who can prepare the better meal. And the rules for these battles are usually set before, which means a theme is chosen, for example, what the main ingredient of the dish must be, etc. And what happens to the loser after the match. That can range from anything like, if you lose, you must join our club, or if you lose, you get kicked out of the academy. So, the stakes can be very high in these in these shokugekis. And after some initial skepticism, Soma is soon intrigued by the tough challenges and unique opportunities to learn more about the art of high-class cooking, and he's determined to rise to the top of the school and become one of the best cooks in the world. So, this show is based on a manga written by Yuto Tsukada and illustrated by Shun Saiki. Yuto Tsukada has written only Food Wars, from what I can tell, and the spin-off manga based on one of the characters from the series, and a special also. I don't know what that entails, how long that was, but anyway, both the manga and the spin-off manga are still running at the moment, so we'll get more Food Wars eventually in anime form too, I assume. Anyway, the illustrator Shun Saiki has done the character designs for this and for Active Raid, a show we'll be talking about next week. But he might be even more well known in certain circles for his many other works, because he has done a lot of hentai stuff under the Are you surprised, John? Are you surprised?
I mean, I shouldn't be, but when you just kind of dropped that bomb on me?
Yeah. Well, he operates under the pseudonym Tosh, and has drawn a lot of hentai manga.
Tosh.0?
Maybe. But yeah, that actually plays very much into Food Wars, if you can believe it, because aside from bringing his crisp character artworks to the show, which are really nice, there's also a lot of nudity going around, and a lot of sexualized content, a lot of boobage thrown around, a lot of man meat and everything. Just in general, it's a very sexy show. So, how does that work in the context of cooking? Well, let me tell you.
Here we go.
The way the show often decides to portray the overwhelming, delicious taste of the prepared dishes is by letting the clothes literally fly off its characters once they have taken a bite of the food. Not only that, but they're basically orgasming, since all the food in that show is so good, they just can't contain themselves. Yeah, that's there has been a lot of GIF work and video clips coming out of that show just because of those scenes. There's, for example, at one scene where one woman tries something. I don't know if there's honey in it or something, and her clothes fly off. She's sprinkled all over with honey, and then just is carried away in a river of honey while moaning happily. So yeah, that stuff like that happens a lot in the show. Yeah. So it's literal food porn. You can say that. I mean, it's basically that in more than one way. So that approach and the cooking subject was what let the show fly under my radar in the beginning. I saw a few pictures and GIFs and was like, okay, this is shallow, edgy, one-shot stuff, comedy thing. Doesn't look too interesting to me, pass. Because I assumed like this oh my god, food is so delicious, the clothes fly off a hot woman's body and her tits jiggle and everything, that would be like the focus of the show, and like the one-note joke that would be played to death, always in the same way, not interesting, and that would be the only hook, basically. So I wasn't interested in it. But thankfully, a lot of buzz brought the show to my attention again and again. A lot of people saying, "Man, this is so good. This is amazing." And I was like, "What? Really? That show? I can't believe that." Then the second season started airing, and I was like, "Oh, okay. I've heard so many good things about the show. I'm just gonna check out the first few episodes of the first season, and maybe if I like it for some reason, how unlikely that might be." I'm gonna, I can directly go into the second season. So, yeah, I'm really glad I did that. And I kind of want to, slap my ignorant self of the past in the fucking face. Because Food Wars is now one of my favorite shonen titles of all time. A
mutual friend of ours has been continuously pestering me. Why haven't you started watching Food Wars yet? It's like, someday, man.
And now you're gonna have two people breathing down your neck for because of that.
Except with him, I turn around and say, "Why haven't you watched JoJo's yet?" Because we made a deal, and he hasn't watched more than like 1 or 2 episodes.
That's a good point. Both shows are equally bizarre, but I guess what's hooked him was the cooking part. I assume because he is into cooking in real life as well, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that is a hook, and a substantial part of the anime than I would have thought. Like I said, I thought the edgy aspect would be the main focus of it, like being a dumb, shallow comedy show and everything. But it's mainly an incredibly entertaining show about Soma and the audience learning more about food and preparing meals in exciting and well-paced episodes and interesting visual ways and everything. And all the stuff of classic shonen shows I personally adore is in there. You got exhibitions, you got tournaments, you got the colorful characters, all with different abilities and, your typical character traits and everything. For example, one of them knows all about meat, one about spices, and those traits basically manifest as special moves in the shokugekis. Since all the characters use different ways to prepare the food, it keeps the show and dishes pretty varied. And you learn a lot of interesting stuff about the different ways and challenges of preparing the food after a certain style of international cooking. For example, Soma uses more of a simple Japanese approach, but you also got Italian and French style cuisine in the show. And, cooks who use that and, come from all over the world and bring like these ideas of, well, how do we would we prepare a food with these ingredients in this country? And, how would we do it in this country? So it's really interesting. Like, if you ever want to see like a classic Japanese food prepared in a French cuisine way, you get it in the show. It's amazing. It's really interesting. Also, a lot of dishes have twists to them, so that after the initial presentation, there is like a surprise waiting for the characters and the judges and us as the audience, which would basically be a comeback special move in a standard shonen fighting anime. And it's staged that way. That is the amazing thing. Like in this over dramatic way with like really over dramatized camera angles and everything, and the music and sound effects. It's great. Yeah, speaking of fighting anime, actually, the shokugekis themselves sometimes actually turn into that. Sometimes during the confrontations, the characters turn into like fantasy versions of themselves, like start wearing samurai armor or something, and then they meet on like this fantasy battlefield, fighting each other with their dishes and food preparation abilities. Those abilities being presented by metaphorical swords or spears or stuff like that. So yeah, it's wild. There's even a scene which you probably will like a lot, just like I did, where the characters produce literal stands from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to emphasize the fierceness of their cooking competition.
I have seen that clip, actually. It's great.
It's amazing. And all is done in such a colorful, creative, and well-animated way that the fights never get boring, in my opinion. Even, like, if the subject always stays the same. Like, first here comes the character, prepares this thing, and then it's, judged by someone, and then the other character brings his dish, and, yeah, who will win this? Usually it's the second guy, I think. But yeah, there are some twists here and there, but you can see the pattern after a while. But still, the way the show is presented, it doesn't get boring. I haven't read the manga, and I assume a lot of the groundwork is already laid in there. But Yoshitomo Yonetani's direction, he has worked on Tiger and Bunny, among many other things. His direction is really snappy and impactful. The important moments are always staged very well and have a lot of impact, emphasized with great music by Tatsuya Kato, whose work, John, you are probably already familiar with from Prisma, Ilya, and Body Complex. And yeah, great job in this show as well. Great music, and like I said, underlines the very emotional and over-dramatized food battles in the show. The show strikes a pretty much perfect balance between, over-the-top funny and pseudo-self-seriousness, which almost never falls flat or feels misplaced or something. The tone is always set in the right way. You even get genuine, heartfelt, emotional moments in the show, which took me completely by surprise, and even made me well up in a certain story moment of the show, which of course can be contributed to the characters. If you didn't care about the characters in the show, the duels would lack any kind of punch. And which I didn't expect. Also, Food Wars got you covered there too. There are so many cool, funny, and sympathetic characters in the show that it's easy to get engaged in their personal arcs and storylines. I also love that a lot of the lower tier characters get their spotlight episodes and are never really forgotten during the course of the show, even if the focus is on Soma himself usually. But, in a lot of shonen shows, Dragon Ball, for example, you got a lot of the characters, that are important in the beginning and then get, less and less important during the course of the show. Like, Yamcha in the end and Tenchi and Han, they don't really matter anymore. They don't have a part in the story because they're not strong enough anymore.
Yeah.
But a lot of the characters in Food Wars, that you make out to be, lower tier characters in the beginning that will fall off by the wayside in time. They don't do that. They they get their highlight episodes maybe later on and then, take another important part in helping the main character out or stuff like that. So that's cool. That keeps the cast interesting and engaging. It doesn't feel like you've wasted time on those, like the show has wasted time on those characters because they, always stay in your field of vision and stay kind of important. And that's cool because, like I said, a lot of those characters are sympathetic, and I was always happy to see more of them when they appeared. So yeah, that's really cool. Great character work in that show and character writing. Going back to the ecchi stuff, which might be, the thing that might keep some people away from this show. In my opinion, it's never irritating or unfitting or even gross. And the show actually finds more visually interesting ways to make use of that gimmick than I would have imagined. Like, it always varies it up and changes the approach to this joke considering what food is prepared. And there are always different visual metaphors used for this joke, and it works really well. It never gets boring, and it's used to good comedic effect, like 99% of the time, in my opinion. Some gags don't land, but most of them are really funny. And I did not expect to like even that part of the show that much. Like, I don't mind fan service at all, but it's not like, oh yeah, give me more fan service. It's not like that either. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the use of fan service in the show. It was really well done. Enjoyed it quite a lot. And like I said, Shunsaiki's character design is really cool and is pleasant to look at. So that works in its favor too in that regard. Yeah, fantastic. One stray observation: the show, at least in its first season, has these great eye catchers that separate the A and the B part of an episode. And sadly, they got rid of those for the second season. I don't know why, because I really enjoyed those a lot. Like, I think every single one of them made me laugh. Because they got some great vocal performance in that, and like these really short, like 3-second jokes or something, and it's really endearing. And yeah, I hope they bring them back if we get a third season, which I assume we'll be getting because the show was successful, very successful, I think. And yeah, hope they bring them back. I don't know. That would be great. I really hope they do that. Yeah, speaking of season 3, I hope we get that one soon. Maybe even a show based on that spin-off manga, Food Wars L'Etoile, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's based on one of the characters who starts out as an antagonist, actually, in the show. But he's more interesting than you think he is in the beginning. And yeah, that's cool. I would like to see that in animated form as well. Also, the first season spans 24 episodes. The second season only 13, if I'm not mistaken, or 12. Yeah. And while interesting, the second season feels of more like, I don't know, a bit of an in-between again, because the characters go off like basically doing on-scene training in actual restaurants in the second part of that season. So it ends on that. And while interesting, that feels like, okay, this is, I don't know, this is an in-between part before the next big tournament or something. Yeah, so I really want to I really want the show to continue and see where this is going, because this felt more like a setup, like an actual conclusion to the show. But like I said, I assume we're going to get more. And my body is ready. As you can probably tell from this rant, I love this show very much. I suggest for everyone who is into shonen stuff or food or comedy or cool characters to check this out. Don't be put off by the edgy stuff. Like I said, it's not the focus, and is usually played in creative ways and to good comedic effect. Food Wars is really one of the best shonen shows I've seen in recent years. Highly entertaining, never gets boring in my opinion. Great characters that you really can attach to, which I did. And yeah, highly recommend by me. So John,
I guess I should eventually get on it.
Yeah, you should.
even though I just finished one show this season, and there's a couple others I would like to catch up with before the season is over. So we'll see if I have time.
Maybe you'll get around to it before, or when the third season starts. So maybe we can review the third season together.
Yeah, because it took a lot of nudging to get me to actually start JoJo's, but after I did, I was like, don't let the train stop.
Don't let the speedwagon stop. Yes, JoJo's is fantastic, and so is Food Wars, and they have a lot of common in certain parts, not only the actual scene with the stands and everything. So yeah, like I said, highly recommended. One word of advice though, don't watch the show while dieting because you will not survive. The food in the show looks way too delicious. It's really tough. Like if you wanna, eat a bit less during the day and watch the show, I think you will not be able to do that. That's it like everything looks delicious. So don't do it.
Yes, it sounds like as far as delicious food is concerned, it has that much in common with sweetness and lightning. Just not the latter is not as extreme.
I was about to say sweetness and lightning is not as over the top, but also relies on strong characters and nice comedy, if I'm not mistaken. So like a feel-good show, and yeah, mostly Food Wars is a really feel-good show as well. I don't remember. There are some parts where you like where there's a like genuine drama in there, as much as you can wring that from a show like that. but mostly it's just feel good. It feels kind of actiony. It's hyper in certain parts, but it only feels over the top in the right way. So it's not overbearing or anything. But yeah, the tradition of food anime has been long and colored. And I think if you want to start somewhere with that genre, and you have kind of a liking to the classic shonen stuff, that Food Wars is your go-to thing. If you feel like you want to take the more slice of life approach, maybe go to watch Sweetness and Lightning. My interests definitely lie more with the former, and that's why I enjoyed Food Wars so much. But yeah,
I have a aversion to shonen stuff. It's just you watch more of it than I do. So.
Oh yeah. I'm
recent years anyway.
I'm a one-note character, so I wouldn't belong with Food Wars. Anyway, so yeah, if you're in the mood for a fun action show, 36 or 37 or what, however long the two seasons are together, is it's not the shortest episode number, but still it's manageable. And like I said, if you're into shonen stuff, if you're into food and everything, it won't get boring. So yeah, check it out. Food Wars, thumbs up.
So you make the transition from talking about food to drink this time.
Mm-hmm.
As the second show we're talking about is, of course, 91 Days. So it takes place during the 1920s, essentially during the Prohibition. Mob activity is crazy. Everyone's out to make their illegal hooch, basically. But the story itself takes place around this boy, Avilio Bruno. And the long and short of it is, he witnesses his entire family being killed by a bunch of mobsters. And I would say spoilers, but this happens pretty much in the first episode.
Yeah. And he only gets away, like, by a hair's length.
Yeah, pretty much. So, Avilio, very understandably has no love for the mob.
He has a slight grudge.
Yeah, just
a bit. Yeah.
So years pass. They kind of had this weird time skip in there where they don't really explain a whole lot. But basically, he ends up taking up the alias Angelo Laguzza, like these very authentic Italian-sounding names that they conjured up. And under the guise of Angelo, he seeks to basically infiltrate the family that took out his parents and basically take apart that branch of the mob from the inside out. Which, it sounds like a very typical sort of, revenge story. And in some ways it is, but there are a lot of, like, without going into spoilers, there are some crazy left turns all throughout this series and I think that was one of the things that I wasn't expecting. But, again, I was expecting it to be, kind of typical, but there are some story beats in this show that are, like, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the beginning, it's really straightforward, but like you said, there in the later parts, there are some twists and turns, and especially when it comes to character development and everything. Though you can get a hint of that already in the beginning. Like, it's got a very dark and somber, serious tone to it. Mm-hmm. And I would say the artwork plays into that too, with its very grounded and earthy color palette. But the characters are not as, clear-cut good and bad as you get them in a lot of revenge stories, I would say.
Right, because Avilio teams up with a friend of his, Corteo, and they start making this liquor called Lawless Heaven. And they kind of make a name for themselves with that. And Corteo, he doesn't want anything to do with the mob. But he kind of, I don't know whether or not to say unwillingly, because there's some moments where he goes along with it, and other moments where he's not so sure about what he wants to do with himself.
Yeah, he gets into it because he wants to help Avilio, naturally, because they were good friends as, children, and, apparently kept in contact. I'm not too sure if that is actually true, but, well, they didn't, apparently their friendship is still strong because he's willing to tag along and, help Avilio. He's aware of what Avilio is trying to do. Like,
just that he doesn't, like, approve of his methods.
No, he doesn't, but he's willing to, for the sake of their friendship, to help him out, even if that gets him into hot water, and it does. So,
yeah, both of them on different occasions end up in bad situations.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of the drama comes from them trying to, like, diffuse these situations and make it out alive, essentially.
Yeah, this is not like a happy-go-lucky show. This is like feels like a really like I already said, like a really dark crime drama with a lot of sad moments and a real dark basic story. It's not like this, okay, we get this basic revenge setup and now we're gonna turn this into a crazy, I don't know, overhyped shonen thing or something. No, it feels, like I said, feels really grounded. The scenery is really realistic. Like, really beautifully crafted backgrounds in the show is what stuck out to me.
Yeah, you get the feeling that it is very inspired by, like, a 1920s Chicago type thing.
Yeah, it feels really close to that. this is what you that kind of show, what you want that kind of show to look like. And the tone of the series itself and the story and the characters match that. And it's like you said, it's not necessarily going the way you expect it to be to go in certain parts, but it's still like the basic movement of the story is going the way these kind of stories go, as in there are a lot of deaths, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of blood, and many people killed. Like really, Avilio is taking no prisoners when it comes to reaching his goal, and his goal is to take the family out and basically take the people who are mainly responsible for his family. I think his mom and dad and his brother, I think 3 people, right? Yeah, who are mainly responsible for killing those parts of his family. And those were basically the 4 heads, well, not the 4 heads of the family, but, there is the big, the head of the family, Don Vanetti, and his son, Nero, and 2 other guys who were there that evening. And those are the main targets of Avilio. And to get to Don Vanetti, he uses, his friendship with Cortio and, Cortio's knowledge about brewing liquor and everything, to get in cahoots with Nero. And, Nero is, this upstart, young, brash, kind of roguish and rebellious mobster, who wants to make a name for himself and is a bit unconventional in his methods and everything. So there are a lot of people who don't like him in the mobster world because they think he's just all talk and everything. And
that's like kind of the nature of the mobster sort of story, is that there's always someone who's a little off the books or off the chart. I'm gonna take care of business my way, sort of thing, just so they can make a name for themselves.
Yeah, Nero is that person, and he's kind of an upstart, but he's not dumb or anything. Like he kind of has a plan for what he wants to do, and it's just like his plan is a bit different from the classic approach the families have taken up to that point and everything. And Avilio gets starts forming a friendship in quotes with him. Of course, it's all pretend, and his ultimate goal is to kill Nero and his father and destroy the whole Vanetti family. And but among all this, which you can already see coming or you can assume happens because that also happens in some of those stories, that friendship becomes kind of, I don't know,
very strained.
No, well, it's supposed to be pretend, but in the end, or what in the end, like after the first few episodes, you can tell that they are actually becoming friends in a way. Like, I mean, Nero doesn't know that what Avilio's ulterior motives are, so he assumes this is the right friendship. But Avilio also, starts, helping out Nero more than he expected to, and taking more of a liking to him than he expected to. At least that's what it feels like. And he doesn't stray from his goals, but he is tempted. He is tempted to several times to is this what I'm doing? Is this right? He doesn't outright say it. You have to read into the small facial gestures that happen in that show, because Avilio is not a very emotional person. He's very cold.
Yeah, I mean, for his objective, he has to be.
Yeah, of course. He's very, very unemotional. You rarely see an outburst of emotion from him, which makes him hard to like in certain parts, especially since he's so mostly, when it comes to the key points in the show and the key moments, he's so narrow-mindedly driven only by his revenge, and he's willing to go through every other person in his, he's willing to throw every other person in his life under the bus, even though that is not something he's actively doing. But if it comes to a decision where it's like, am I gonna execute my revenge, or am I gonna, or am I gonna help that person? If these are the only two available options, he chooses revenge. Like that's his modus operandi, and that makes him a bit hard to like. And Nero is actually, in many ways, like the more sympathetic character of the two. And by the end, I was torn between rooting for him and Avilio, which I assume was the show's intention. Like I said, there are very few one-sided villains here. Well, maybe except for Fango.
Fango.
But at least he's immensely entertaining.
Yeah, he's hilarious, but he's a fucking nut.
He's a maniac. If you've seen Bacano, he's kind of a Lad Russo type of character. He's kind of jokerish. He's very much into the violence and, just celebrating the way of life he chose, and killing a lot of people and causing a lot of mischief and everything. So, yeah, that's the kind of character Fango is. But aside from him, there are very few like one-sidedly evil character, and even he is not like, maybe not pure evil, but he's an asshole. Like, he's a genuine asshole.
It's very chaotic.
Yeah, exactly. But most of the other characters, like especially the two mains, are complicated and faceted, and there are many scenes that make you change your opinions on them and their actions over and over again during the course of the series, which I like quite a lot. I like it when characters, are not one note, and makes you, think and, change your mind when it comes to your attitude towards them.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that way about Corteo as well, because of the way he goes back and forth on a lot of things without saying too much.
Yeah, exactly. But with Corteo, it's never like where I was never in a position where I was like, man, that was a really asshole-ish move of you. I always could understand where he was coming from. And Avilios does some things where it's like, oh man, I think you're going a bit too far here. And Nero, while he starts out like, one of the antagonists, just, because what he took part in, he does a lot of things that make him very sympathetic. And we're like, mate, this is actually a good guy. He's just born into this family, and his destiny, which he has chosen, for himself, or at some point he actually gets pushed into that, because you wonder if he actually wants to take over the mantle of the Dawn. But, at some point he kind of has to, for certain reasons, or has to prepare himself for that. And yeah, you feel like, okay, this is actually a person that is in this situation, not necessarily because he chose to, but because he was born into it. And, if things played out differently, he would have been, the most sympathetic and relatable character of the bunch.
I like that because, it shows him accepting that responsibility,
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like I said, he's probably my favorite character in the show. And yeah, it's like I said, character work in the show is fantastic. Lot of interesting characters, lot of faceted, and yeah.
It's I will say this about the plot: it's not a show about happy endings. That's for sure.
Not at all. Not at all.
And I kind of like shows like that go outside the norm to say, hey, there isn't always that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, revenge stories are, depending on how they're set up, can go either way. And, if you pay attention to the tone of the show and, in the first few episodes, you can guess that, like, that, this is not a show about happy endings and everything. But still, like I said, there are some twists here and there that you don't see coming. And even by the end, I was surprised by the ending. I didn't expect it to go that way and go the way it did. But I was still satisfied. I was like, okay, yeah, this is a logical conclusion to this. This is how it's, even if it's a bit open-ended, I was like, yeah, okay, I can I'm satisfied with this. This works. This is a good arc for both of the two main characters. This is how it could play out and everything. So yeah, I liked it a lot. What is a bit hit and miss in this show?
The animation.
Yeah, John, you want to elaborate on that?
So, the show's animated by a studio called Shuka.
Yeah, which I haven't heard before.
One of their other big credits is a lot of... they've done a bit of the Durarara series.
Yeah.
But...
Going back to Baccano, because that's kind of the spiritual sequel to that.
It's true. And I still haven't watched either Baccano or Durarara, and I'm sure a lot of people out there would grab me by the cuff of my shirt and be like, "Why haven't you?"
I haven't finished Baccano yet. I have to start it over. I started actually when I went to America to visit you guys, and started watching on my netbook. And then I stopped for some reason. I don't know why, because maybe I was like, no, I want to watch this on the big screen or something. But yeah, it was a very entertaining show. And I heard from the people who watched both that it's universally the more acclaimed one. Like Durara is a bit more of a mixed bag. Like get some, I don't know if pacing issues is the right word in that regard. But yeah, it's got some problems.
It seems, from what I've seen, very much more bombastic and crazy.
Yeah, yeah. But it's interesting, because Baccano is also set in kind of in that setting, in that timeline that 91 Days is set in. So maybe that studio has like an interest in those kinds of in those I don't know, 1920s American gangster style I don't know shows, or it's I don't know, that's the go-to studio for those kind of shows. I don't know, it's interesting. A lot of correlation between those two, not only in some of the characters but also in the setting.
Yeah, but about the animation, it's, how can I say this nicely, very inconsistent.
It's not on the level of Phoenix Wright or anything, just to get that out of the way. Like,
but there's a lot of parts that could look better. There's a lot of moments where characters look off model. And this is gonna be my eternal whipping boy, and I'm sorry I keep using it, but it's not on the level of Chaos Dragon where it's consistently all throughout bad, but there are moments where it can be really, really distracting. I remember even saying, like, if the quality doesn't go up, I'm not sure if I can finish this show. Because I remember, I forget which episode it was in particular. I think it was maybe like the 6th or 7th episode where it was like, whoa.
What was that episode you posted the screenshot from with Nero and his jacket?
I think that might have been like episode 9, but there's one scene in one episode where Avilio is, making some comment about something, and Nero just goes up to him and gets up in his face. In the previous shot, Nero isn't wearing his jacket. In the shot where he's in Avilio's face, he's suddenly wearing his jacket. And when they cut back to the other angle, oh, look at that, his jacket's gone again. Like, what? Did you check this? Apparently not, because, it's bad. It's, this might be a harsh word to throw out there, but it seems almost amateurish.
Yeah, it feels, in certain parts of the shows, feels like it was rushed. To finish a bit, just to, oh god, we got a timeline, we got a deadline, we got to get this episode out, and it was like, well, quality checking department, didn't do their job, or they didn't have time or anything, but yeah, a lot of the stuff feels like it's like a rush job work. But even in its worst parts, it doesn't feel, like I said, like something like Phoenix Wright or anything, where it's just the show didn't have any budget or something. I feel like it always, especially in terms of color work and scenery and and everything. Even the CGI in the show is rather good. It feels like it had people working on it who who knew what they were doing. Just in general, it just feels like they sometimes, didn't have the time to pay attention to, how the final product, like the final assembled product, would look like. Like if not all gears were perfectly working in sync or something like that, and stuff like the thing with the jacket would happen. And that's what it felt like. But I assume a lot of that stuff will get fixed for the Blu-ray release.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
Because the show is definitely worth watching, even without those, even with those mistakes, in my opinion. So,
yes, I mean, the show was directed by Hiro Kaburagi, and I feel like he did a good job with the direction of the show. Because
aside from overlooking,
aside from quality issues on the animation side, I feel like he did a good job otherwise, because the story and the flow, I feel like it remained consistent throughout. So, and we had the script written by a couple people. We had Taku Kishimoto,
who wrote the main bunch of it, like 8 episodes, and did also the series composition, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And some of the other stuff he worked on was a bit of Haikyuu, apparently.
Yes.
Magi, The Adventure of Sinbad.
Yes.
And he did the series competition on Joker Game, which is a show that we had talked about a few episodes back. We had mixed feelings on for different reasons.
Yeah.
And the other writer was Yuichiro Kido, who also did some work on Gotcha Man Crowd's Insight and 7 Deadly Sins, Signs of the Holy War. So,
still haven't watched that show. Like the second season of, or that mini season of 7 Deadly Sins. Thanks for reminding me.
So proof that the writing on the show was really good. So
yeah, really, like the strongest part definitely of this show, the character writing, the story. Aside from the twists and turns, it's a basic revenge story, and you've seen that kind of groundwork covered in not necessarily in anime that often, just in terms of setting and everything. That is kind of not overused. That is not something this is not like this is what anime set in Japanese high school are we gonna get this season? Like how many fucking 99%? Yeah, definitely. No, this is like.
Don't you want another harem show though?
No, harem show set in the 1920s, Prohibition time. No, yeah, well, that would be at least something interesting. But all the girls are themed after specific liquors with the corresponding names.
Jesus.
Yeah. Call me KyoAni. Anyway, but yeah, like that setting is not overused. So just in itself, it's something. It feels kind of fresh. It feels interesting. It feels like something you don't see every day in terms of anime. But in Western media, I feel like that has been done more often. Come to mind would be Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis. That's like the one. It's like the movie I was immediately thinking of, because it kind of plays to the same thing, where like that one guy pits the two families against each other. I don't know if he had the same kind of motivation, if it was a loved one killed or something, or if it was just money or anything. I don't remember. But yeah, that was something I was thinking of. But anyway, yeah. Still, the story, while the basics are kind of familiar, does enough with those basics to make it interesting, and the characters are like the most interesting part, like where they go, who they are, what you learn about them, and what you don't learn about them is very interesting. It also has a great opening animation that tells you almost more about Avilio's inner pain than the entire series does.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because, like I said, in the series you have to guess a lot of what he's thinking at the moment, because his face doesn't give away much, and there are like only these small small body and facial gestures in the show, which are good, which is paid very much a lot of attention to in the show, like the small gestures in general. But the opening is really good when it comes to highlighting, the specific, the high points of the show and the emotional turmoil that Avilio is going through.
The opening song is also very fitting for it too. The pace of it. It's got that very, I'd say, almost like mournful sound to it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like that's the style of always forget the name. They did the opening for Tokyo Ghoul, which I also really liked.
Ling Toste Sigure. They also did, I believe, a couple intros for Psychopaths.
Yes, right. So they always great stuff. And this is no exception. It's one of my favorite openings this year. And I think it fits the series very well. I don't remember the ending that much, but I think it was good too. Aside from the shoddy animation mistakes in some of the episodes, this is a really well crafted little show that I would highly recommend to anyone who can deal with a bit more serious and somber tones in their anime and doesn't, need over-the-top action, even though action is in there, but still doesn't need it to be too anime-ish. It feels like a lot more realistic than a lot of the anime series we usually get.
It doesn't feel as anime. You're right, and I think that was a good sort of breakup for this season.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, more of that would be actually welcome each season, in my opinion. It reminds me a bit of the shows adapting classic literature and putting that into anime from the olden past. Like, what is a good example? Maybe Little Women, or I don't know if Rose of Versailles is fitting, because that's a bit over the top as well in terms of its visual language. What else was there? I'd have to cram for it. But a lot of that stuff was running on TV over here when I was growing up. Like a lot of anime adapting work of classic Western literature. And I liked a lot of those shows that, were animated but didn't feel like over the top and had a very realistic feel to it. A lot of the world masterpiece theater stuff was in there too. So I always like that stuff. I like anime using a realistic approach to certain subjects and trying its hand in the stuff that you have already seen in Western cinema and everything, but putting it in animation form and playing to the strength of animation. So and 91 Days did that really well. Even though, like we said, some animation mistakes here and there, but just putting a nice gangster drama on into serious form, 13 episodes. It worked really well. Well paced, good character arcs, and a nice story in general.
I think one of the other, and it's a very small thing, one of the other things that I liked was they were not subtle about it being, a gangster story, considering, the show's logo is, I'm pretty certain it's the same logo font from The Godfather.
Oh yeah, that's what it reminded me of. That might very well be the case.
Yeah, because I remember seeing that for the first time during the first time they ran the intro sequence, and I was like, "That's the Godfather logo."
Yeah,
but, it works,
fitting.
And it's a neat nod. So
yeah, and doesn't copy paste it or everything. I don't mean the logo. I mean the story of Godfather or thing, right, or any general mafia like mobster movie. It does its own thing with it, and it does that very well. So again, highly recommend it. This is a show of where we wholeheartedly can recommend both shows, and I think that happens rarely enough. So, not rarely enough, but I was really, really engaged by both those shows and really looking forward to each new episode.
Yeah, I mean,
for different reasons.
the plot twists in this show, oh man, the hooks were very deep in me.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh shit, I gotta know what happens next week. Come on, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, if you want a good mob drama, that's not quite the norm for what you expect out of typical anime. This is a good show. It's a great show, actually.
And that is a wrap on the 20th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to vit.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and animebrainfreeze.com. Leave us comments and questions anywhere you like, or send us an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next show. Macht's gut.
Arrivederci.
Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
A ray of sunshine.
A black swordsman battles the horrors of bad CG.
And a tokusatsu police force.